Do you ever feel like chaos in your organization is getting in the way of teams being more effective at work? My guest and founder of SmartTribes Institute, Comaford, has developed an approach that blends applied neuroscience and ancient wisdom to help leaders and teams cut through chaos and fear to build emotional engagement that increases performance, collaboration, and talent retention. In this episode, Christine and I discussed the early days of her career in the 1980s, working with tech companies like Adobe, Microsoft, and Apple, starting her own businesses, her current work at SmartTribes Institute, and how she blends her extensive business acumen with applied neuroscience and ancient wisdom, how acknowledging and regulating emotions and fostering a supportive work environment can turn dysfunctional and fearful teams into cohesive, motivated, and successful groups, and her volunteer role as a death doula, and what she has learned about what really matters at the end of her life journey. Let's dive in. Christine, welcome to Making Business Art. Thank you so much for being on here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we have been connected through our mutual friend, Cheryl Farr. And Cheryl was a guest on here. I think it was episode 17, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's just been really nice to connect with you. I know Cheryl really loves your work and gets a lot out of your time together. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking more about your work and some of your journey and what you have been up to. I just want to acknowledge that in researching your background, I see that you're a true renegade. You've always broken the mold and done things in kind of in your own way, like followed your own calling in many ways. And so we're going to touch on your background in from like big tech companies back in the 80s and 90s all the way through to what you're doing today. But so we're going to visit some of that past journey. But first, let's start with the present and tell me about where do you work and why do people seek out what you offer?
Thank you. So I do have two jobs. So one is Smart Tribes, and we take the latest neuroscience-based research and map it to really practical, really potent, super easy to use tools. And that helps leaders build more emotional engagement, have more fun at work, have their teams have greater retention, greater performance, etc. And I love doing that because one of the most important things to me is helping people remember who they are. I mean, really remember who they are. And when they use these tools, they get an expanded version of themselves, which is super cool. So I love doing that. And that's Smart Tribes Institute. And then separately, I'm a death doula, and that's through EOL Peace, like end of life peace. And I work with people from so far 9 years old to 93 years old, walking them through the death process.
Yeah. And you have been doing that since the mid to late 90s, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you've been
27
doing this.
years. 98
Yeah.
was when I started the death doula work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 35 years on the other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So Smart Tribes looks like a really interesting approach. And like you were just saying, it looks also very applied, very practical. And so first of all, can we start with what is a smart tribe? What does it mean
Oh,
to be a smart tribe?
yeah. So a smart tribe, basically, we think of two main states of the brain. The critter state, where you're like a little animal, fight, flight, freeze, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just like trying to like stay not dead. And that's when we're in that kind of amygdala hijack. Or the smart state, where the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, hippocampus, all the key parts of our brain are working together so we can collaborate well, we can communicate well, we can be emotionally regulated, we can be balanced, we can be innovative, etc. So a smart tribe is when the majority of your people are in their smart state.
Yeah. And so as you mentioned, you apply this neuroscience lens to your work. Tell me, like, what are misconceptions about how humans function that you often encounter in the world of work?
Yes. Okay. Anyone who's ever had a problem employee, right? I want us to notice when we have a problem employee, what do we look at? All the ways they're problematic. And of course, when we're seeking that evidence, we're going to find it. And we're missing all the stuff that they do well. So one of the biggest problems I see at work is people get put in boxes and labels. The one who's not that smart, Oh, the rock star innovator. Oh, the kind of jerky salesperson, but they perform really well. So we see people put in these boxes, and the leaders don't seem to connect the dots that their privilege, not entitlement, the leadership privilege is to cultivate and elevate people and to help them stand in and experience a much bigger version of themselves. So when we use our tools with them and do our workshops and coaching and all that good stuff and retreats, the Beyond Your Brain retreats, the leaders start to, and the people on the team start to see, start to open, expand their mind, if you will, and see new versions of themselves that are more expansive and capable, but also new versions of everybody else. Because when we box people down, often if someone in authority is putting us in a box these days, job security, we'll kind of go with it. And that affects all aspects of our lives because we're not like worker drones. We're humans that happen to work and happen to have a personal life, and we operate in all these contexts. And if we can use work to not only be productive and take care of the business, et cetera, but to also expand a person's experience of themselves, everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, and circling back to the neuroscience lens, in the world of work, it's common to see people. So, like, I remember somebody that I dated a long time ago. She's like, "Oh, I go to work. It's like, I'm not here to make friends." I'm like, well, no, that's not quite true. But we also have culturally this conception of like at work, we're rational, we're not emotional. And I know that I think you and I have some overlaps in how we think about emotion. So let's unpack that and connecting back to how human beings really work. What's the perspective on emotions that, for instance, that you start to unpack when you're working with a leader and a team?
Beautiful, thank you. So emotions to humans are like wings to a bird, right? The bird can't fly without wings, and that's part of its birdness, of it experiencing full birdness, if you will. So emotions are feedback. Emotions, depending on whose research you look at, 90 to 93% of all of our decisions, of all of our behaviors are dominated by our emotional brain. So it's really important to experience our emotions, not smush them down, not like lose it, but just to go, wow, I'm really frustrated right now. Whoo, wow, that's uncomfortable. And be there for a second before you try to avoid it, deny it, etc. Then you can say, okay, what would I like instead? And we can start to shift from problem to outcome focus. But we've got to be able to be present to our emotions because they're telling us something. They're useful.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Well, emotions are data at the end of the day,
totally did.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're really helpful info. Yeah.
yeah,
So we help
absolutely.
people learn to use them instead of say we are work robots and also notice where our personal work is, right? Because if we have personal work to do, it's going to show up in all of our interactions at work where we do have relationships at work because we care for the people that we work with. We can't just say, I'm a robot at work and I don't make friends at work. No, there are some connections at work. The connections help
Mhm.
us collaborate better,
Yeah.
care for each other enough to pick each other up when we
Mhm.
fall, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this conception around we only use logic at work, I just find it to be very strange now, like a very strange belief. Because so again, so we'll get into this here in a minute, but you spend your early career in with technology, right? 80s, 90s. Technology, internet, software, coding, etc., and some finance. In and even today, so present day, so I've done consulting. Anytime we've looked under the hood of a organization, regardless of the size, but especially in the larger ones, there's a fair bit of chaos, right? You look under the hood and you're like, oh boy, there's a lot going on here. And even with the tools that we have today, where there's like big data and there's a lot of data, leaders really make a lot of choices and decisions kind of based on emotion and gut. I keep in touch with past clients and I'm like, hey, what's going on and what are you seeing? And they're like, well, it's people are not really looking at data. There's, yeah.
Right.
I imagine that you experienced that way early in your career as well. Yeah, it can. Give me a couple of notes, like a couple of brushstrokes of like, did you see that back in 80s and 90s? And how did you make sense of the story of like, oh, we're just logical, but then people are just really like making choices based on emotions, which is what humans do.
Below all this stuff is a bunch of fear.
Right.
So first, let's just go there. And what I find is that people have all this dysfunction, etc. When they come, I think we're here on earth to learn from our relationships, from our human interactions. Yes, it would
Mm-hmm.
be a lot easier if we just did everything our own way and we're alone, but it'd be totally lonely, and we're not designed that way. We're designed to be social creatures. We've seen the loneliness epidemic and how problematic it is. So when we work with others, then we have to collaborate, compromise, et cetera, deal with their triggers, deal with their childhood traumas that we don't know anything about. And I think it's so important to just notice that everybody has some sort of trauma that they're either working through or they have squished down.
Yeah.
And everybody also, every single human I've interacted with, and that means billionaires, that means US presidents, everybody has a not good enough story that they have
Mm-hmm.
either worked through or are working through. And even
Mm-hmm.
if they worked through it, it gets triggered now and then. So I think if we can show up with what one of my teachers says, it's three things. He's like, all you need is three things: compassion, of course. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know what somebody else's experience is. So just the workplace and just life in general, it's really important to work on your compassion. Humility, you don't know it all. You'll never know it all. There's too much to know. Let other people know stuff. And purity. And purity can be tricky in terms of, what does that mean? Well, what's your intention? And if you have a
Mm-hmm.
pure intention and you get that the world does not revolve around you, you are one of many beings on this planet that are all in this grand collaboration. You can keep it in perspective and let entitlement, narcissism, etc. go and realize we all need each other. And then you can have a little more compassion for yourself and others. Remember, at one point, Bill Gates got really angry because Excel was taking a long time to come to market. And he gathered the Excel team up and he yelled at them all and he said, what is wrong with you guys? I could have written Excel in a weekend. Okay, well, he couldn't. It's really a
Mm-hmm.
complex piece of software. I mean, a spreadsheet, forget about it. And afterwards, I was hanging out with some of these Excel guys. I was over in operating systems and they were just like crushed. And I remember saying to Bill, that was one strategy, the strategy you used. Did it work? He's like, yeah, I think it really motivated people. I was like, not so much. No, no. It actually kind of
Yeah.
crushed them. And it's going to take a while to like scrape them up off the floor, make them feel good about themselves again. So, no. And seriously, could you really write Excel in a weekend? And you know what? Maybe even if you could, they're not you. So, like, are you going to fix this and get Excel out the door? Or are you going to have broken programmers who feel like crap that are going to take twice as long, probably? Maybe some even just to spite you. Like,
Yeah.
how did your behavior work? Like, was it an effective strategy? And we had to
Yeah.
unpack his fear around what was below. Oh no, if we don't get to market, we won't crush Lotus 1, 2, 3 and da, 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 da. It's like there are better ways to do this. Humans can be fragile, especially when they're overworked, exhausted, and trying their best to please you.
Yeah.
Leaders forget
Well,
that.
yeah. I mean that, and obviously this is your time when you were working at Microsoft. So this is the 80s, the mid to late 80s. So this is a good segue because I had a question here. Just to acknowledge that early in your career was largely spent as software engineer in technology companies like Adobe, IBM, Microsoft, Apple, and then you had your own consulting business. But so I'm going to step into a stereotype here, but stereotypes do come from somewhere. And the IT department historically is not known for high emotional intelligence, right? Apologies for any technologists who are listening to this. Don't be offended, but my lived experience has been such, and probably yours too at some level. I was just really curious if you can tell me about how your views on the role of human emotion at work changed over time, coming from these like techie, male dominated also environments, 80s and 90s. And
Yeah.
were there any pivotal moments for you that kind of shifted your perspective on like, hey, we're really emotional creatures and we need to pay attention to this, especially in the world of work.
Yes. So that was one of them because I was
Mm,
surprised that the Excel engineers were so crushed.
right.
So many times. Oh, before I even got a job at Microsoft, I was doing contract software coding for Domino's.
Mm,
And there are different ways to respond, right, to criticism and to not good enough stories. And I remember my boss, Scott, he would always say, you should be like Doug.
mm,
Doug is like a really good programmer. So he was basically saying, you suck. I wish you were Doug. Doug's a really great programmer. Da, da, da. And I remember thinking, thank you very little. I will actually be a better programmer than Doug, or at least I'll be the best version of Christine programming.
mm,
And I'm going to get a Microsoft job, whereas that's what Doug dreams of. And that gave me the fuel. So that not good enough story gave me the fuel to say,
mm,
yeah, up your nose with a rubber hose, dude. And it was so great the day that I quit. I said, oh yeah, I got a job at Microsoft. See ya. So it can you can use it as fuel or not, right? It
mm,
depends where the person is and it depends who they're giving their power to. And that's something I want us to all really think about. How often do we give our power to others? Because you know what? There's this great story about a Zen master, and I'll just do the short version of it. Basically, the villagers say, oh, you suck, you're awful. And he says, is that so? And then he does some other things. They told him he sucked because he actually was falsely accused. And then they realized he was falsely accused and he was humble. And they said, oh, you're amazing. And he's like, is that so? So, yeah, you suck. Is that so? You're super. Is that so? I mean, that's the work we all have to do is to be able to stand in our value, regardless of what people say. Because whenever people say stuff that's unkind or they're trying to tell you you're not good enough, it's just an internal projection. That's where compassion comes in. Oh, wow, it must be hard to be that person, to have to put other people down because they don't feel good enough. That's hard.
yeah. When did you start to be very intentional about bringing in awareness of emotions and like neuroscience into, well, into the work that obviously that you're doing now?
Yeah, it took me quite a while, I have to say. There was a lot of
Mm.
suffering. There was a lot of confusion. I was never really a victim. I've always been like,
Yeah.
damn the torpedoes, I'll show them. But really, it was about where are we now? We're in 2025. I started really getting curious about this in the 90s, in the late 90s. Oh, you know what? It was really, it started to get connected with the hospice work
Mm,
because I
hmm.
started to notice all the emotions, all of what I call FRUGs, forgiveness, regrets, unfinished emotions, guilt, shame that people deal with when they're in the death process. Thank you for helping me notice that. So
Hmm.
that's when I started to see people as more of an emotional being
Right.
and to honor that more and also to look more at my behaviors. I mean, at age 15, I took EST, Earhart Seminars training. I did learn that like you're 100% responsible for your own life and life only has the meaning that you create. So I got that when I was 15 years old. So thank you, mom and dad, for going so that I could then go underaged and have that experience. But what was cool was that I had enough work experience then. But yeah, so like 1998, 1997, I started to go, you know what? This emotion stuff is a big deal. It
Yeah.
drives our behaviors. I have to pay attention to this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So tying this back to the present day, what are like really common struggles that you have noticed among leaders and teams that you've worked with over the decades?
Yeah.
What are the big ones?
Yeah. It's three. It's fear, it's judgment, and it's attachment. We'll do attachment first.
Hmm.
Things should be different. They're not. Okay. So we can waste a ton of time and energy wanting
Right.
things to be different or people to be different. That's
Hmm.
attachment, right? And if we just say, be here now, this is exactly what's happening right now, acknowledge and appreciate it. And now, what would we like to create? Put our energy in acknowledging what is, being present to what is, Nothing is ever perfect. And now what would we like to create? Judgment, bad news bears. We can't be judging each other because we're comparing to them to what? A standard? Whose standard? Is it our standard? Is it fair to compare them to our standard? Is it really our standard? Or did it come from our parents that we've been trying to compare ourselves to forever? So judgment, that's back to what I said. Oh, problem employee. So judgment, judging people, people are judging people all the time. Judgment also has a subset of comparison, right?
Hmm.
Which is where envy comes from and jealousy. They have that, I don't have that. That's where backstabbing comes from. That's where silos come from. So I find these three horsemen, if you will, are the most problematic because they have sub behaviors that are problematic. Fear, God, fear's under almost everything. Fear that we won't be good enough, fear that we'll miss our target, fear that people won't back me. Yeah, but if you're judging them and you're attached to them being something that they aren't, then yeah, be fearful because they're not going to back you. So those three things I find keep coming up over and over again below it all.
Yeah. Also with the judgment, do you also find that there's some projection? Like
Oh yeah.
like the people are judging somebody else, but it's also something in them that they don't like about themselves, but they're maybe the awareness is not very clear around that. I don't know if you have anything else any more to add to that.
It's just like when someone says that someone's not good enough, right? It's a
Hmm.
projection. There's a lot of projection going around. That's why I love Byron Katie's work so much. When you're
Hmm.
upset about something, you can unpack it really quickly. Oh, Joe is disrespecting me. Okay, so that's your experience. Is Joe disrespecting me all the time? Well, no. Has it make me feel lousy, devalued, etc.? How would I feel if I didn't believe that Joe was disrespecting me? Well, I just would feel open and curious and happy and just like me. Turn it around. Well, I'm disrespecting Joe. I'm disrespecting me. Joe's disrespecting Joe. Huh. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it makes you take a sec and say, wow, before I start pointing all these fingers, maybe I should look at what's going on in me that's contributing to this perceived upset.
Right. I just wonder if you have a story. Has there been an instance of a client team where you just felt very proud of the transformation they went through from when they first contact you to maybe some changes they were able, I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but some changes they were able to implement. And of course, keeping names anonymous to protect the innocent.
Sure.
I don't know if there a story that bubbles up for you,
Yeah.
again, of a client team that you were proud of.
Yes, a ton. One is a particular company. They had done really well with their products and they sort of rested on their laurels and they didn't do
Hmm.
product releases as often. And some competitors came and started eating their lunch and they
Hmm.
released a product and it didn't do well because, again, they got a little bit resting on their laurels, a little bit lazy. And everybody was really pointing fingers. Well, engineering didn't do this. Well, marketing didn't do that. And I was working with the CEO and he's like, we have to deal with this. And so basically we got everybody together and we said, hey, this is a cool opportunity for us to realize a few things. What did we learn from this? What worked? And what would we like to have seen more of? Right. And everybody started realizing, well, we could have done more user surveys to see if they actually wanted these features. Well, we could
Hmm.
have cut the features so we got to market better. We could have. And basically, it was taking from moving everybody from that problem focus to the outcome focus. Okay, so what would we like? What will having that do for us? How will we know when we have it? What that we value might we risk or lose? We're not to go back to the press and say, hey, you know what? We messed up. Here's what we learned. Here's our point release to fix all that stuff. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for helping us know and wake up that what we were delivering was not really what the consumer wanted. We're back on track now. Thank you, everyone, for being so generous and giving us this experience. And then, of course, the stock price, instead of going down, now went up because
Hmm.
they were saying, we're listening now. We fell asleep for a bit. Thank you for helping us wake up. And they've done great ever
Yeah.
since. It's like
Yeah.
bringing that humanity
Yeah.
into the workplace. We say that all the time.
Yeah. So in an applied sense, like on the ground, in instances like that, what are like your go-to first steps to start to work with a team that's in, I assume that when people call you, it's because the house is on fire, right? I suspect nobody calls just like, oh, things are great. Just come hang out, Christine, right? It's usually like, WTF,
Yeah.
stuff
Or,
is bad. Please help.
yes, stuff is bad, please help. Or we know we want to get to whatever. We're really well known for getting people to 100 million, to 50 million,
Hmm.
half a
Hmm.
billion, etc. We want to get there. We don't know how,
Okay. Yeah,
or we're growing so fast, we're a little afraid that we're going to screw it all up
that's a tricky
because
one.
we've
Yeah.
not gone there before. So
Yeah.
usually it's those three scenarios.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we want to do is understand what outcome they would like the outcome frame I just gave a second ago. Now, we worked with one huge consumer products company that had all sorts of natural disasters, which had messed up their supply chain,
Mm.
right? Which had then messed up their revenue, which had then caused a lot of stress. And in that case, we first had to do what we call maneuvers of consciousness because they weren't ready to talk about what they were like. They were like, "Arr!" So we first had to let them just vent. I only let them do it for 3 minutes though, because it's not helpful otherwise. All the way venting, Arr! What we call negative evaluation for 3 minutes, all the bad stuff. Then we step back and we have to get a little curious. Okay, well, what is so bad about this? What are the stories I'm telling myself, etc.? And then we eventually want to get to gratitude and kind of amazement. It's amazing that this even happened. And wow, thank you for this experience because it helped us grow. Then, okay, so now what would we like? Sometimes you just have to clear the decks of all the negativity first. Then you can actually get into, and now what would we like?
Yeah.
And that has to be a shared vision.
Mm. Yeah. Did COVID, the lockdowns, it was such an interesting time. Is there a story from COVID that was,
Yeah,
yeah, some really interesting project that stretched you? Because that I think that stretched most people.
it did. Well, here's sort of an interesting one. This client, they do work on site with humans. They were sent home.
Yeah.
So they have hundreds of people deployed on client sites. Eek. And then
Yeah.
suddenly they're like, it's IT. Suddenly it's like,
Mhm.
send all your people home. Oh, and we don't want them doing their revenue from services was cut by about 75% because they just said products on hold,
Wow.
projects on hold, project. So skeleton crew
Hmm.
just keeping the doors open technically, but all projects frozen on hold. We don't know if it was Armageddon. Remember the early days, how weird it was?
Oh
We're
yeah.
like, whoa, is the world ending? So I was working with the executive team and we're like, okay, well, obviously we don't want to have to lay a ton of people off. We did have to furlough some people. We did. That's just reality. But we were scrambling. We took the majority of people and put them into skunk works and said, okay, figure out stuff. And what we realized was contactless services. Of course, if you can't touch it, make sure you don't have to touch it. So they created all these contactless services, vending kiosks, etc., for all their retail clients. And we got revenue back up. It took 9 months. It took 9 months to get
Yeah.
everything created, deployed, etc. So we were down for the year for sure. But the next year we were up about equal to the prior year and up about 30%. So you have to kind of look at it's like the lemons and lemonade, right? You get a bunch of
Hmm.
lemons, you make lemonade, right? It's like you're in a room full of poop, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere, right? So it's looking at, and I write about this in my first book, Rules for Renegades. It's like problems plus pain equals profit. It's got to be a painful problem, or people aren't going to want to pay to fix it. So that was a great pivot story. Yeah, a lot of our clients did really beautiful pivots of just either changing their business model or changing their service or product bundle or blend. Yeah, to just say, here's what the world is now. Okay, what does the world need? contactless stuff.
Mm,
Yeah, self-serve stuff. And now we see contactless stuff all the time, but
yeah.
we didn't used to.
So just a few minutes ago, we were talking about, you were just reflecting about like the fear and the judgment, etc. What might be some red flags that a leader or a team should be like, hey, we need to reach out for some help, like to Smart Tribes or whomever it is that they have on tap? What would be some of that awareness that's helpful for teams to have so they're not like dragging problems forever, but be like, hey, we need some help now?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Generally, well, I'll give you the nerdy number stuff and then I'll give you the
Hmm.
emotional stuff.
Okay.
The nerdy number stuff is wow, our profit per employee is really low. It's dropped. Our
Mm-hmm.
revenue per employee is really low. It has dropped. Our employee engagement is really low. It has dropped. Our customer satisfaction is really low. So the measurement stuff. And then we would separately want to look at safety, belonging, and mattering of the people. Do the people feel safe here? And if they don't feel safe, it's really obvious because they're talking about exit plans, they're talking about fear, they're talking about how they're stuck and they can't move forward, they're spreading fear, etc. So are they not feeling safe? Are they feeling like they don't belong? Is there lots of us versus them? Are there silos? Are people dropping out of communication, not responding to emails quickly, etc.? Is it not us and we can depend and rely on each other? Is there lack of trust? And then mattering. Do we have any bullying, which is an extreme case of somebody pathologically almost experiencing lack of mattering? Do we have, and I have to do everything around here. Okay, that's a
Hmm.
mattering issue. Are people not getting enough praise and appreciation? And if people don't understand what their career path is, I've been saying performance management is stupid. Please let's stop doing it. It's so 1980s. And finally, just seriously, 2 weeks ago, Ezekiel, just 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago, I read an article saying, oh, maybe performance management isn't working. I'm like, seriously? Because years ago we said, please do performance motivation instead.
Hmm.
Motivate people to perform. Don't
Hmm.
like manage them like a herd of cattle. And how do we motivate them? Well, we build just a few structures that are really rich in safety, belonging, mattering. We give them an impact description, not a stupid job description. How their role impacts the organization and makes a difference. How their role matters. How they bring beautiful stuff to the company through their role. So impact descriptions instead of stupid job descriptions. Self-performance reviews. So they can sit down with their boss and say, here's how I think I'm doing. The boss can look at it in advance and say, okay, here's my experience. Let's find out what's true. The highest stressor in the workplace is the performance review. We did some work with Yale years ago on that. Worldwide, highest stressor in the workplace, the performance review, because everybody feels like it's unfair. And there's a bunch of ways to do that more fair. And then, of course, the individual development plan. So we understand, like, wow, I'm safe, I belong, I matter, because we're talking about my future. I understand how I need to grow to have possibilities for advancement. It's all clear. There's nothing like murky. I'm like, if you're special or you play golf
Hmm.
with the boss, it's all like upfront and clear. So then we can have trust in our culture.
Yeah. Something that was coming up for me as you were saying this is my first few roles were in nonprofit world and then in local government, managing grants, funding nonprofit work. And so on one hand, the people in nonprofit world don't make a lot of money, but they're like or even in public sector, like the people who really believe in that, they're so committed, they put in long hours, and they just get loads and loads of meaning out of their work. And then in consulting with private sector, maybe there's some number like, oh, our big goal is that we want to be like $1 billion company, something like that. And I've noticed that the people were just kind of felt empty, like it wasn't an animating goal. It's okay, yeah, it's a number. So what
Yeah.
happens if you don't reach this? Well, then we're not $1 billion company. And either way, it's like, eh,
So,
what difference does that make in the world? It's like, well, somebody gets a nice bonus. It's like, okay.
yeah.
So it's just making me think of that.
Where's the meaning? That's why
Yeah,
companies, seriously, companies have to have
seriously.
values and they're not like
Yeah.
stupid values. They're values that matter. Like ours are the acronym CIRCLE, Communication. If we don't communicate, we're hosed, right? Because people have different perspectives. Communication, integrity, and a big part of integrity is accountability. Everybody at a company gets stuff done on time. That's just what we do. Reflection, we stop, we look back, we reflect on past projects and ourselves and see how we can grow. Contribution, we want to make a difference. If we're not making a difference, why do this? Learning, we're constantly learning. And then energy, we bring passion and love to our work. So values help people understand how to be in the tribe, how to be safe and belong and matter. And then a mission or a purpose or whatever term you like for it helps us understand that, like back to Steve Jobs, that we're making a dent in the universe. And I said back to Steve Jobs, and I just realized I was telling somebody else's Steve Jobs story before I got on with you. Sorry, to introduce Steve Jobs. We have to feel like we're making a dent in the universe because we spend so much time at work. It's got to be meaningful and important. So as a leader, we have to help people understand the bigger reason we're doing this. And really, in my experience, every company can be distilled down to either giving people power, like the personal computer. That's about power to the people, or removing pain. So are we empowering people or are we removing pain? I don't know why else we'd want to create a company.
Yeah. Well, now that you mentioned Steve Jobs, that something about Steve Jobs was bubbling up for me. So we're synced up here. Christine, there's an old quote from Jobs that I find very moving and that also sparks a lot of curiosity in me. And the gist of the quote is that when we make something with a lot of love and care, and in his case, meaning products, there's something transmitted to the end user that you feel the care
Yeah.
that went into the product, and it makes for a different experience and a different emotional connection with the product and the brand and everything around it. Since you brought up Steve Jobs, do you have any reaction to that? Have you seen that in your own work, in your own life?
I'm an animist. I mean, I really
Mm,
feel
mhm,
that everything is alive or has consciousness in it, maybe is a better way to say, because somebody had the vision for that iPad, for that whatever, right? Somebody thought of it and then they created it. And so they brought consciousness into creating that particular item. And I wrote a blog back when I used to blog for Forbes. I wrote a blog called I Stalked Steve Jobs.
mhm.
And it's about how I really wanted to meet with Steve Jobs. And so I went through all these gyrations and I finally did, and how trippy it was to like travel into the future and how he laid out like the next 18 years
Oh yeah.
of products that actually came to market. He saw them. He didn't know how it was going to happen yet, but he saw, and he didn't have names for the products yet. But he saw people like carrying their music and something really small and etc. But yeah, and one thing, can I tell you a quick Steve Jobs story?
Sure.
Okay, it's the polishing rocks story. I don't know if you know this story, but he used to, when he was like 8 or 10 years old, he used to
Mhm.
do chores for his neighbor, mow the lawn, etc. And the guy was kind of a MacGyver creator guy. And one day the guy said, "Hey, let me show you something that I'm creating." And he asked Steve, young Steve, to grab a handful of rocks and to put them in this coffee can. And he threw in some water, and the guy threw in some like really gritty sand. And he saw that the coffee can was hooked up to a motor. And the guy said,
Mhm.
"Okay, come back tomorrow." And he heard this racket as young Steve was walking away. He heard this really loud racket. The next day, he comes back, and the guy says, "Okay, so, open the coffee can." And he opens it up, and the rocks he put in yesterday are like polished and gorgeous and shiny and pretty. And he said it really stuck with him. But it wasn't until he was about 30 years old that Steve said, "Oh, wait, the rocks with those jagged edges, those dirty rocks with the jagged edges, those are us. The water is emotion. That gritty stuff is conflict. And we put the conflict and the people and all the emotion together and we smack them together a bunch and we polish each other." And like, whenever I think of a conflict situation now, whenever I find myself
Mhm.
in one, I'm just like, yeah, we're polishing rocks. We're polishing each other.
But there's better ways to do it. It doesn't have because
Doesn't have
Steve
to be
Jobs'
so
way.
violent.
Yeah, but like I definitely advocate for tolerance of creative aberration when we're working in teams, but it's
Yeah,
nice. Just the container for that has to be set up thoughtfully, right? For it to be
totally.
productive
Safe.
and really constructive. Yeah.
Yes. Safe and time boxed so it doesn't go off ad nauseum. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Christine, I want to jump in the time machine
Time
and
machine.
make a few stops. I have a
Okay.
few questions about moments in your journey to the present. In preparing for this, I saw that you spent about the first 7 years or so of your adult life as a Buddhist monk. So I'm curious, what is the most significant life lesson you took away from that experience?
Oh, I used to get in trouble because there was a lot of transcendence. Let's go up and out. Let's transcend. And I was like, I think we also have to go in and down. Don't we have
Mm-hmm.
to go in and down too? Don't we have to like go deeply into ourselves and down and deal with our stuff? Is it really, are we ready to transcend? Like, we can't just like leave this sort of mess here. So, what I took away, and the main reason I left was I really felt I had to go in and down as well as up and out. I didn't want to spiritually bypass. I wanted to make sure that I dealt with my humanity and honored my humanity and didn't deny it and say, oh, yeah, I'm so spiritual. Because I come across a lot of what I call wavy, floaty people that are like, oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really spiritual, but they can't pay their bills. They can't hold down a
Mm-hmm.
job. They're super spacey. That's like spiritual bypass. I don't want to do that. I think true spirituality is really grounded.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And the teacher was into the whole transcendent thing and
Yeah.
didn't really work for me.
Right.
Yeah.
How did that percolate into your working life, like in the early years once you started to get into these tech jobs?
I came to things not as consciously by a long shot as
Yeah.
I do now, but I
Mm-hmm.
came to things about being a realist. Like,
Mm-hmm.
meanwhile, back on Earth, what's actually happening? I get the dream, and that's fantastic, but like, what's happening right now? And when I reached out to Lotus and I said, look, Microsoft's going to eat your lunch with Excel. And they're like, we're Lotus 123. We own the
Mm-hmm.
market. I'm like, yeah, not for long. And they didn't believe me at all. But Jim
Mm-hmm.
Manzi, who was the CEO at the time, at least said, well, who is this young whippersnapper? I'll have lunch with her. And first he said, well, hire her. So I got in there and I was there for a month or so. And I could have lunch with him then and say, look, this is really efficient. That's really efficient. It takes a really long time to write code. I would totally change this if I were you. Microsoft's going to eat your lunch if you don't fix that. And
Mm-hmm.
to his credit, he said, oh, but his people didn't move fast enough. He gave them the directive, but they didn't move fast enough. And it's tragic that Lotus 123 lost their entire market and WordPerfect lost the whole word
Mm-hmm.
processing world. But I mean, I watched these huge titans fall
Yeah.
because they just didn't stay on top. They didn't stay frosty. We all
Mm-hmm.
have to stay frosty. We can't rest on our laurels. We've got to say, okay, cool. I'm not saying don't appreciate your accomplishments because I don't want to be part of that achievement addiction thing because I definitely did that for a while, a long
Mm-hmm.
while. I want to be able to enjoy what we've achieved and also say, cool, how can I grow next so I can be of greater service to humanity?
Yeah. It's so interesting how the mighty fall. Like there's these brands, these companies that it just seems invincible and untouchable. And then 5 years later, it's amazing how that happens. Even I think the story of Kodak is one of like
Ah,
mind blowing. Like they had the digital camera and just the incentives and whatever, they just couldn't work it out. And now they're kind of coming back. The brand's coming back a little bit, but yeah, the journeys of these companies are,
yeah,
it's amazing. And the hubris behind it all, right? Because that's usually what makes the mighty fall. Starts with hubris, I think.
that's my experience. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, talking about hubris. So just again to acknowledge that you spent 80s and 90s at some of the top tech companies, building and selling also multiple businesses in tech and finance. I'm just curious, like what were the key lessons in leadership you took away from this period of your life, and especially taking into account that you're a woman in this male-dominated field, which I think women in present day still have
yeah.
things to say about. that issue, even though it's like probably magnitudes better than it was or more
Magnitudes.
balanced than it was in the 80s. So yeah, so what are key lessons in leadership or anything else in life that you took away from that period
Yeah.
of your life?
Well, you know what was silly, and I mean, I can laugh about it now, but when Microsoft got busted by the Employee Development Department, the IRS, for having a bunch of contractors that really looked like employees who weren't paying their taxes, and
Mhm.
I scooped them up and I started a company, and suddenly I was like, what, 27, 28 years old, and I had like 35 employees overnight. And I'm like, Dad, how does payroll work? What I noticed then was, hey, that's enough. That's not enough. I had to get other professional services contracts to
Mhm.
actually survive because
Mhm.
Microsoft would pay 70 days late. 70. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because the guy in charge of approving the checks didn't like me, wanted everybody to go with Volt Technical Services because that was his
Mhm.
golfing buddy, and I was
Mhm.
making too much noise. So he was trying to like string me out and kill me. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. I'll just get some more clients who pay faster. But I realized that I was going to head with like Accenture, well, back then Arthur Anderson and
Mhm.
Deloitte and these very serious looking companies. So I realized I had to look more serious. So I got a fake pair of glasses and I got a fake wedding ring and I would smush my hair back in a ponytail and I would wear like
Mhm.
navy blue suits, white shirts. And I just made myself look as safe as possible. And I was not wild about the charade, but didn't really matter because like that's what it took. And I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna let my company die
It's
because
gotta
people were
survive.
intimidated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do what did you gotta do? Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. And now I can laugh about like how silly it was, but I gotta tell you, Ezekiel, it worked. And once we got
Mhm.
Chevron, which was an early client, so we had Microsoft, we had Chevron, we got a couple of nice names, Wells Fargo, people,
Mhm.
then it was okay, right? Because everybody felt safe because the other
Right.
big companies had bet on us. But until then, we were too
Yeah.
risky.
That's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
Wow.
So make the client feel comfortable. Give the client an experience of same as. It's the number one cognitive bias. Are you the same as me? Oh, you're not? You're dangerous. So I had to address the same as by get as close as I could, not being fully same as because I was a different gender. And then separately, when I was leading the companies, you got to love up your people. You do because employees, contractors, whatever, there is, regardless of what we say, there is a big parental transference on you. And many
Mm.
people are working out their mom and dad issues with their boss. So it's not just a job. There's a lot going on.
That's wow.
So
Yeah.
be present to your people. Find out what they need most from you. Safety, belonging, mattering. Find out where
Mhm.
they go when they're triggered. Do they feel that they don't matter? Find out what makes them feel extra special. Is it belonging or is it just mattering across the board? You have to know that. You have to know that so you can take care of your people because the emotional experience, right? Remember what we said, 90 to
Mhm.
93% of the decisions of the behaviors are driven, dominated by the emotional brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to take
Well,
care of your people.
yeah. So back at that time, did you have a role model or mentor who had a significant impact on you during that period of time?
There was a guy at Nabisco who was a client of ours, and I will never forget him, Greg DiGiovanni. What a
Mhm.
great guy. He was more of a client mentor.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell him all sorts of like my fears and stuff because I was a service provider.
Yeah.
But I really liked watching how he interacted. See, I find people are either
Mhm.
a great example or they're a cautionary tale, right? The guy at Microsoft who was holding my invoice is
Mhm.
cautionary tale. Greg DiGiovanni at Nabisco, good example. So what I found was my dad really was my best business mentor because I could
Mhm.
ask him all the scary questions that I
Mm.
couldn't really ask other people. So my dad was amazing at that. And then really, there weren't a lot. It really was watching my amazing clients and
Yeah.
seeing how they interacted with their people. Because I was like my late 20s, early 30s. I didn't know what I was doing.
Well,
Suddenly, you're doing millions in revenue, and it's just like,
let
oh
me
shit.
let me
No.
just check this with you because my impression is at the age that I am, that if we're really honest, I don't think anybody really knows what they're doing. I think we're just making it up as we go along. Do you
In
agree?
many areas, I mean, I
I
can
think
say
so.
I know how to drive. Am I a great
Yes.
driver? No. But I've got that. I've got driving. I've got it okay. But there are a lot of things that when it comes to like human interaction, no matter how much I've studied it, no matter if
Yeah.
the 10, 20, 30,000 hours, I mean, I've helped 66 people die. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. There is so much to learn about human interaction. I will always be a novice about human
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah.
So big.
Well,
Yeah.
so in preparing for this, I think I heard a name of somebody who influenced you in very positive ways. And let me see if I get the name right. Does the name Greg Woods ring a bell?
Greg Woods, yes. Jerry John Polsky as well. Greg Woods at the National Performance Review when I was working with the Clinton administration for
Yeah.
two-ish years, a little bit over
Hmm.
2 years, working on balancing the budget. Yes, everybody, the US budget was balanced. I was there. Greg Woods was awesome. Again, kind of a client mentor, but I loved the way in government, he
Hmm.
was so scrappy. He was
Hmm.
totally entrepreneurial. When he created the National Performance Review, which was really with the charter of creating a government that works better and costs less, he went out to the different departments, commerce, treasury, et cetera, IRS, and said, okay, I need you guys to chip in somebody for, I can't remember, it was like 1 to 3 year term, but they've got to bring their own desk, their own post-its, their own
Oh, wow.
computer. So the NPR office
Hmm.
was great. Nothing matched. It was all like this totally mismatched thing. And we did it. A lot
Hmm.
of it was creating the government's internet strategy.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was technology, but also a lot of it was just cost cutting and efficiency. And Doge is doing that now in a very different way than we did it
Hmm.
then. But yeah, he was
Yeah.
awesome. He was
And what about
awesome.
the way he related with people? Because I heard you talk about modeling that,
Yeah.
and you really sounded like it had a big impact on you. So can you say more about that?
Yeah, in my TED talk, I think. What was great, well, there was a lot of stuff that was great about Greg Woods. He was really present and human with
Hmm.
people. Didn't push his expectations on them. He was curious. He would be
Hmm.
asking. He wasn't like, we're going to do this. He would be saying, hey, if this were the vision, how would you create it? What would you suggest? He saw his people as strategic consultants to him, if you will. There was a lot of humility, yeah, and really big heart.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I was really devastated when he died of pancreatic cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. The metaphor that bubbles up for me when I hear you say that, it's kind of like an invitation to dance. Like
Yes,
he's
thank
inviting you
you.
to dance,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
In a compelling way.
Yes. Well said.
Nice. Well, coming back to present day and your work at SmartTribes Institute, so I also know that you have integrated learnings from ancient wisdom traditions into your work. So can you tell me about the traditions that you mainly draw from and how they have influenced your approach to helping people thrive in the world of work?
Yes. So Peruvian shamanism, Native American shamanism, I like the earth honoring
Yeah.
traditions because we're so digital and disconnected from nature. Like we need
Hmm.
to get back in, grounded to the natural world. Egyptian mystery schools, some of the yogic traditions, and I don't mean the physical yoga, I mean the yoga sutras, etc. And what I find is that when we blend, just like with the neuroscience, we just take the stuff that's appropriate for today. So,
Right.
what ancient wisdom, techniques, tools, etc., ceremonies are appropriate for today? And then we bring those. We have a retreat called Beyond Your Brain, and it's beyondyourbrain.com. And what we do is we help people really ground themselves in reflection and gratitude and connection and energetic protection because we're all sensitive beings. And we help them experience relationship with the natural world in terms of the elements. I mean, actually connecting with water, fire, wind, earth, actually connecting with trees and stones and plants, etc., and mountains, and just helping them find their place in the natural world, stepping away from all the technology and noise and social media and computers just for a few days to really drop in and remember who they are. And what's so amazing is that the blend of these tools that are so potent cause people to have a really profound transformation in just a few days. And then they go back to their world, bringing that new version of them, and they do things differently, and they experience things differently, and they show up differently, and they have a different effect on people. And that's cool.
Yeah. Funny enough, neuroscience keeps finding that like forest bathing, being in contact with, I think I'm also a fan of this stuff, so I'm very nerdy and I read up on these things. I think from the world of psychoneuroimmunology, I think there's some studies, some older studies of patients in hospitals who have a window that looks out at like woods or a garden heal a lot faster
Yep.
than patients who don't. And and I think you also mentioned elsewhere as I was preparing this, the work of oh gosh, the heart coherence people, what are they called? Heart
Yes,
math.
Roland McCready, heart math.
Yeah. And so all of these things also have an impact on the electromagnetic fields in our bodies, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So it does kind of
absolutely.
connect.
Yeah, it does connect. Yeah.
Yeah. Something term that jumped out at me, and this is kind of it jumped out at me, I think partially because I kind of so, some mystical experiences that I've had, like this popped out. So I was curious to hear what you had to say about this concept, this word of being a sacred witness. Can you tell me more about what that means in your world?
Yeah, when someone is sharing with us, sharing their feelings, sharing their experience, sharing some vulnerability, the role of sacred witness is just that. It's sacred. You are
Mm,
witnessing their vulnerability, and that's a honor. It's an honor for someone to share intimate, vulnerable things with you. And I think it's so important to just be with them. So often when we're listening to someone, we're listening as to whether we agree or disagree, and we're
right.
preparing our reply. And that's kind of level one, if you will, of listening. How would I want to respond to this? Level two is just being like present with them and curious. Wow, what's it like to be them? Wow, I've never seen things that way before. Wow. You're still a little bit active, but at least
Mhm.
you're in curiosity versus preparation, if you will, or judgment, agree, disagree. And then third is just total sacred witness, totally holding space, super still inside, still mind, open heart, desire to be of service. And there's nothing that you need to do, because when you can actually really just see somebody and really be present with them, that is a huge gift. Huge gift. So few people actually can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's bubbled up for me as something very important, and I've been exploring. Funny enough, though, I have a background in cultural anthropology, and I love like doing like qualitative user research because I'm very curious and I just take that in. But I think as you're outlining right here, there's just layers and layers of listening where you can get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, thank you. So there's layers of all this stuff. There's layers of our
Mm,
personal work. Like
mm,
someone was saying to me the other day, wow, I'm still working on such and such issue. I said, well, are you? Or are you working like 5 layers down on that issue? What was it like at the first layer? Oh, yeah, I've really made progress on that. I'm like, yeah. And then just noticing, like with meditation, right? First, we're like entangled in our thoughts. And then next, over time, we start to just be aware of our thoughts and to look for the space between the thoughts and focus on that. And then next, we start to become aware of awareness as well as the thoughts. And then ultimately, we're just in awareness. And the thoughts just have dropped away entirely. But like, it's okay to take steps.
Mm.
We don't have to go from like 0 to 60 miles per hour. We don't have to be so American about like, I want the end game. Like the kids who just come out of college, well, I want to be the CEO and make 200 grand. It's like, okay, it's going to be a while.
Mhm.
You didn't fail because you didn't achieve that in a year or 6 months. Give yourself maybe 8 or 10 years.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your Beyond Your Brain program. So I was
Yeah,
going to ask about that and what changes have you seen in clients that embrace these practices, especially when they go back to the world of work? Like, what's the
yeah,
feedback that you hear? What comes back?
yeah. Well, one of the big ones is people really often get promoted because they're showing up in greater sovereignty, if you will. They're standing in their power, their sovereignty more. So people get promoted or they get raises. That happens really often. Or if they're a freelancer, they get paid more. So there's like the financial, which is really just an acknowledgement of value. And then separately, relationship with themselves. Their self-talk is more kind, loving support. They value themselves more, thus they make different decisions, better exercise, better food, blah, 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 kinder to self and others. And then in others, more compassionate, greater ability to be a sacred witness, greater ability. We have one testimonial where one of our folks, Elizabeth, says she can walk into a room now where people are really upset and she can just help everybody settle just by her presence and how that makes such a positive difference. And then really looking younger and having a spring in your step and sleeping better. And people always talk
Yeah.
about that. People are like, did you go to a spa? I just find when we do this work and the whole goal is to become in right relationship with the natural world, to touch things gently, to not leave a trace, to honor our role in this grand collaboration, to realize that all of this isn't here for us. And the universe is not a big freaking vending machine waiting for us to make requests and say, where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
To get our role and to be so comfortable in that role and to feel the honor of that role. Each of us is here for a beautiful, specific purpose. And everybody always wants to know their purpose. But what I notice
Mhm.
is it's what's right in front of you, you
Mhm.
know, and your purpose can change. But whatever you see that's right in front of you is what you're supposed to do. And whatever
Yeah.
gives you joy is what you're supposed to do.
Well, I've come to recognize that we don't need to find our purpose. We just need to recognize because it's always already there.
It comes
Yeah.
to you once you get
Yeah.
still enough,
Yeah.
like divine guidance, like guidance from your higher self. You have to get still enough for it to come to you.
Yeah.
If there's always noise, how can you possibly hear it?
Yeah.
Too much competition.
It's amazing how it's at the end, it's really about the vibes and the energy, isn't it?
I have to show you this picture. I'm not sure if I
Hmm.
showed you this before. I hope it's going to turn up. If not, we can figure out what to do with it. But oh, and I always scribble edits on it. But it's like, this is how vast you are. Look how vast we are as human beings.
Well,
There's stuff
so
happening on all these
for
levels.
for people listening, can you just do a verbal description of what we're looking at?
Yeah, I call it the divine earth diagram. And basically,
Hmm.
there's a little person in the middle, and
Hmm.
then there are a series of rings,
Hmm.
7 kind of concentric circles around that body. And the first circle is the physical, and that's where we have the elements, the 7 hermetic laws, which is how the universe works, the law of karma, etc., and the 7 sacred truths. And then next is the emotional, where we have organismic rights, we have emotional intelligence, we have safety, belonging, mattering, etc. We have all the subconscious stuff. Then we have the mental, which is where we have beliefs, identity, ego, shadow. Then we have etheric or causal, where we have intentions and chakras and insights. Then we have the ancestral incarnational, where we have epigenetics and we have karma and we have archetypes. And then we have the collective unconscious. All of these rings are affecting us, where we have illusion and Maya, and then where we have the collective superconsciousness, where we have infinite intelligence and the quantum field. And look at this, there's just this little person with all these things that affect who they are. And then based on your belief system, you could have one of these for each of your lifetimes. So there's a lot going on. And understanding, I was just talking with somebody about like when we close, oh, I don't want that in my life. We
Mhm.
shut down our core energy, the Sushumna in Sanskrit, the core energy where all of our chakras are aligned. And so we're actually reducing our ability of our energy
Mhm.
to navigate the challenges. If we can just say, wow, I'm going to be open to whatever occurs, all of our energy is available to help whatever challenging thing is happening move through faster. We close and we just calcify and add one more layer to that big boulder of fear or whatever. It's usually fear beneath it all that we're carrying around. Instead of just
Mhm.
saying, wow, I'm really scared, I'm really angry, I'm really uncomfortable, I'm really disappointed, and just letting it move and being present with it.
Yeah.
So it's all alchemical fuel. Everything that shows up in your life is fuel for transformation. Like, use it. I just had a really
Mhm.
difficult family experience, and I
Mhm.
realized I got caught up in it. I did, it's true. And then I said, wait, there's fuel here. This person is an amazing teacher to me. There is alchemical fuel here, and I am not going to miss this opportunity. And it totally changed. And I started seeing all the ways that I was like that person's behavior that I had judged. And I was like, there in me, I have those things too. What a great teacher. Thank you so much. And that really helped me expand. And I closed first, and then I thought, I'm closing. Stop it, Christine. You gotta open. You gotta use the opportunity.
I
I went
totally
to
hear you. Yeah.
I went to a memorial yesterday. Life is fleeting. I mean, I can't believe I'm gonna be 63 in 10 days. That's freaking nuts. How did that
Mhm.
happen?
So you're a Taurus?
I am. Yeah.
Me too. Yay. That's right.
You
Yeah.
know,
No,
it's like it's
yeah.
fast. This lifetime stuff, it is fast. If it doesn't feel fast to people listening, I promise you, when you cross over 50, it'll start to feel fast. When you cross over 60, it'll feel like light speed.
Yeah. Well, I grew up initially, I was born and grew up the first leg of my life in Ecuador. And we had like a lot of extended family. And in the past 20 years or so, a lot of these beloved elders in the family have passed away. And so it's just been a shock where I might go there to visit and I see somebody, and then this happened like at least twice where they like pass away like 10 days later.
Oh,
And now with my partner, with Amy, we talk about you never know if the last time that you saw somebody is going to be the last time that you saw somebody. So last year, I think I mentioned this when we first connected before this recording. My grandma passed away
yes.
at the age of 97, and I was able to be there and hold her hand, and she was surrounded with more family. But ever since probably almost 20 years ago, I had just thanked her for like all the things. So by the time she passed, I had communicated all the gratitude and love and like all the things because I just kind of started to get paranoid about when's the last time that you're going to see someone. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be somebody who's of advanced age. It can be, we just don't
Anybody,
know when we're going to go.
you don't know.
So I've really learned to like not hold up to a grudge and just try to like just keep clean accounts with as many people as I can. So I
Yep.
hear you on that. And I mean, and this is a good segue for the next question that I had for you is just, again, looping back to your volunteer work as a death doula in hospice care. And what have you learned about what truly matters in life in the end?
Yeah. I really think of it as like a formula, an equation. Life equals the people that you meet plus what you create together.
Mm,
And just as I've worked with all these people on their deathbeds, and I've received so many deathbed confessions, it's
mm,
all about relationships. Ezekiel, it's all about our interactions with others, all of
yeah.
it. So back to humility, purity of intention, right? Compassion. Some people, these right now, it's such a wacky time on the planet. Some people are barely making it through the day, barely white knuckling it through the day. I
Mhm.
feel so fortunate to not be in that situation. So it is my great good fortune and my responsibility to have tremendous compassion for others. I do not know what they are going through. I do not want to be a bratty teenager who thinks that it's all about me. It's just not okay. I want to be of service to humanity and reduce human suffering. That is what I vowed at 13 years old, and that is what
Mm,
I'm going to do. And yeah, do I get confused? Of course. Do I fall off the horse? Yep. And I get back on as quickly as I can, and I have wonderful friends that I feel very safe with, where I can just say, wow, I think I screwed up all this. And they help me get back on the horse.
yeah.
It's really fast,
Christine.
it's really fleeting,
Yeah.
and don't count on other people doing it. They might just barely be getting through the day. Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Take the high road. There's never any traffic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something that it's been helpful for me is to just get really clear and present to that I think that most of us are doing the best we can with what we know and what we have. And some of us don't have or know a lot, and we're doing the best that we can within that. But I think in looking at or just recognizing that some of us are acting in certain ways out of ignorance, and not ignorance in a pejorative way, but more in
Right.
the sense of like not knowing, right?
Yeah.
Being instead of not knowing something or not knowing better. That's gone a long way for me in like smoothing out some edges and some
Yeah.
judgment for myself and my loved ones, and I think the broader world. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's I've only been at the passing of my grandma, so I haven't been in the position to be present to other people passing away, and that's always like curious, like what really matters at the end.
Yeah. People.
Yeah.
That's where all the pain is if it hasn't been resolved. So that's one of the big things
True.
I work on is like resolving, releasing the
Yeah.
judgments, the pain, the forgiveness, regrets, unfinished business, guilt, shame. Because a lot of them are just stories, right? That our ego made
Hmm.
up to keep us separate so that we
Hmm.
don't connect,
Yeah.
you know? And connecting is what it is about. So, yeah, and it's so interesting to notice, even though every death is really unique, the human experience is, I believe, is about love. I think we're in love school. I think planet Earth is love school or love university, whatever you want to call it. And when I get stuck, I ask two questions. Or if I'm not sure how to pursue, I say, okay, what would love do? What would love do right now?
Mm.
And I do that. Or, and what is for the highest good of all concerned? And whenever I do make mistakes, it's because I didn't ask those two questions every
Mm.
single time.
Hmm.
I forgot my questions.
Yeah. Those are
Yeah,
great questions.
yeah.
It's a really great filter. Christine, so the name of this project is Making Business Art. I'm curious what comes up for you when you hear that phrase? What meaning do you make out of it?
Yeah, when I think of making business art, I think of sculpting people. I think of Michelangelo or a sculptor like chipping away the stuff, right? So that the
Mhm.
marble or stone, so that the amazing, like Bernini, I was just in Rome at Villa Borghese and seeing actually, it was a year ago. That was fast. See how fast time is? And I was just looking at these
Mhm.
amazing statues that really, you can see the fabric as if it's in flight. It's like, how did
Mhm.
he carve that? The opportunity we have as leaders, as humans, to help uncover the masterpiece that is in each human being. So making business art, that's the image that came to me, kind of taking away, releasing is a better term, maybe,
Mhm.
stuff that gets in the way of the masterpiece that is the human
Yeah.
that reports to us, that is one of our peers, that is our leader, that is our child, that is our friend, that is our spouse, that is our partner, whatever.
Did I see something about you also were a dancer for a time?
I was in a dance troupe for 5 years. Yeah,
Tell me, so pick your adventure. Tell me any notes that you have on like embodiment and connecting with people through this art form.
through dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was primarily belly dance. And my favorite one was where we balanced this scimitar, the sword, curved sword on our heads. But I have to be
Mhm.
honest, we did put surfboard wax on the blade so that it
Okay.
stuck to our hair a little bit more easily.
Yeah.
So gotta be honest on that one.
All
Still, it
business
was
is show
not good.
business. Yeah.
It was still heavy and we still had to keep it there while we were doing everything else. And so like you're
Mhm.
moving your arms and you're like trying to like keep your head still. You're moving your hips
Mhm.
and your arms in different rhythms. That's what's so fun
Mhm.
about belly dancing is you have different rhythms that are happening in your upper body and lower body. And you have to like keep it all straight. And if you're balancing a whatever 15-pound sword on your head, it makes it a little bit more interesting.
Well, yeah.
What I found though was when I looked at the eyes of the people in the audience, there often was a
Mhm.
look of awe. And
Mhm.
I think dance, especially kind of that primal tribal dance, takes people into an altered state where they sort of remember a simpler time. This is why I love Beyond Your Brain, a time where we're more connected to the earth, a time when things weren't so fast, a time when we had space to remember who we are. Yeah, there's something sacred about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That type of dance, what you're describing, that also sounds to me like you have to be really present
Oh,
because you
yeah.
you got a lot going on in
You got a
terms of
lot going
like
on.
body awareness, right?
Total body awareness. Yeah.
Wow.
You have to be in your body. Yeah.
All right, Christine. So we're gonna land this plane here. We're gonna wind down our conversation with a lightning round, and then I'll open up the floor for you to share what you have going on. Ready? Okay, here we go. So first question is, what is the last piece of media that you loved? And that can be a book, a movie, a podcast, or anything else.
Last piece of media that I loved. I loved watching this show called The Residence
Mhm.
on Netflix because the detective is so different than what people expect and she nails it. All their judgments, she just like lets them roll off.
Nice. What is something that inspires you?
Oh my God, people every day.
Mhm.
People inspire me. I have what I call the sensei of the day, which is like my teacher of the day.
Mhm.
It's just a stranger or somebody I know who just, whoa, wow, yeah.
Nice. What is a song or band that you must play during a solo road trip?
Oh, I like silence a lot, I have to tell you. I
Mhm.
like silence a lot. I
Mhm.
like David Pramal. Yeah, she sings
Mhm.
Sanskrit hymns. I really like
Ooh,
David Pramal. Yeah.
nice. Okay. And last question, what do you want to see more of in the world?
Love, love, which has lots of flavors, right? Compassion, patience, kindness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You know what? I meant to ask this question earlier. This is a cosmic question. It's kind of like a monster of a question. So feel free to pass. But so I pull out this question now and then. What do you feel wants to get expressed through your life?
yeah. So I was told by Celtic man years ago that Christine means the meaning of the name is a bridge between the realms. And he was
Mhm.
not at all surprised that I did hospice work. What I think needs to be expressed and is frankly mostly expressed in hospice, but it happens at Beyond Your Brain too, is that bridge. It's like people feel the bridge, especially when I do hands-on Reiki work with my
Mhm.
patients. They feel the bridge, and it's an honor just to be the conduit. It's not me. I'm just the conduit. I call myself the courier. I'm like the cosmic courier. It's like, what's the package for this patient? I'm here to deliver it.
Yeah. All right, Christine. So in closing, so let people know, why should they look you up? Where can they find you? And anything else that you have to share?
Yeah, look me up and connect with me if you want to truly remember who you are. That sounds compelling. Or all the business reasons. You want help with your business to grow it, to turn it around, to whatever, to launch it. SmartTribesInstitute.com. Or you can just go to Christine.com and it'll point you to all my sites anyway. So Christine.com or Smart Tribes Institute. Beyond Your Brain is our website for our retreat. And I would say go to that website just because it'll give you a little mini retreat, even if you never come to our retreat, because the energy is really good.
Yeah. That Christine.com, that lets you know that you've had that domain for a long time.
I've been in this for a long time. Got that in 1994 or 95.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you also give listeners a couple of brushstrokes on the Beyond Your Brain? Where does it happen? What happens there?
Yeah, sure. So we have two more prep webinars
Mhm.
starting in June. The physical event, so two more prep webinars. The physical event is in October 9 to 12, and it's at Asilomar, which is in Northern California, in Pacific Grove, which is right near Monterey. And you can learn more details at beyondyourbrain.com.
Great.
And it's amazing and transformative. And we've just got a couple spots left.
Awesome. Christine, well, I'm very grateful that you shared your valuable time with me today. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's been
Thank
lovely
you.
conversation, and hopefully we'll meet in person one day. So
I would look forward to that.
we'll have to make it happen. Have some drinks with Cheryl.
Yes. All
She's awesome. All right,
right.
Christine, thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Okay. Bye, Ezekiel.